Have you heard of the Archies? Not the cards you buy, but the comics. The tales of Archie Andrews and friends. For many, it's a cult. I'm sure a lot of you grew up reading it, and many of you wanted the Archies' life, having milkshakes and hanging out with friends. It's a simple life, and readers love it. But in India, Archies has sparked a debate. There's a new movie based on the comic made by Indian filmmaker Zoya Akhtar. It's the subject of an intense debate. Thanks to the cast, the lead actors. There's Agastya Nanda, grandson of Amitabh Bachchan, Suhana Khan, daughter of Shah Rukh Khan, Khushi Kapoor, daughter of Sridevi and Boni Kapoor. Three main characters, all of them star kids. And that's what's polarizing the audience. Critics have called it a Nepo Kid Fest, a sign of the rot in Bollywood. Supporters say it's a storm in a teacup, and marketing experts say it will only help the film because there's no such thing as bad publicity. So Archies has reignited the nepotism debate. And it's nothing new in Bollywood. The charge of nepotism and the practice of nepotism have both been around for a while now. The question is this just a Bollywood thing? What about other industries and walks of life? Also, what exactly is nepotism? Why is it a problem? And why should you care? Hello and welcome. I'm Palki Sharma. On this show, we read between the lines, the stated and the unstated, the obvious and the hidden, to bring you the full story. If you look at human history, there is one thread that weaves its way through empires, governments and industries: nepotism. Here's what it means. Nepotism is the act of using your power or influence to get good jobs or unfair advantages for members of your own family. That's the dictionary definition. Simply put, it is favoritism towards your loved ones. Of late, it has become a subject of intense debate, so much so that the hate for nepotism has turned into an industry itself. Look at Instagram. One of the top trending hashtags is boycott nepotism. The New York magazine called 2022 the year of the Nepo baby. They even had a cover to go with it. It featured Nepo kids from Hollywood. So it's not just a Bollywood trend, and it's not a new one either. Nepotism is as old as time itself. The word finds its roots in the Catholic Church. In Latin, nepos roughly means nephews. Popes would appoint their nephews for cardinal positions. They did not have their own children, so nephews were the best option. It was to continue what was called the papal dynasty. And that's how the word nepotism came about. But the practice did not start with the Pope. Greek philosopher Aristotle may have been a victim of nepotism. His teacher was Plato. Plato had a leadership position in the academy where he taught. Aristotle thought he was the protege and that he would get the job. But Plato gave it to his nephew instead. Then there's Charles Darwin. He told us how we evolved, but his own evolution was shaped by a man named Erasmus Darwin, who himself wrote a theory on evolution. And how can we forget Charlie Chaplin? He too was a Nepo baby. His parents were famous British comic performers in the 19th century. So I guess the point is that nepotism has been long practiced and is widespread, starting with kings and queens. Over the centuries, societies evolved. Leaders came to be elected and not ordained by birth. Office bearers were supposed to be picked on merit, and companies were answerable to shareholders. The new system should have had no room for nepotism, but it persisted. Take US President John F. Kennedy. He appointed his brother Robert F. Kennedy as the Attorney General of America. His brother-in-law became the first director of the Peace Corps, and nepotism got so out of hand that in 1967, America had to come up with a law banning federal officials from hiring close relatives. Ironically, it was called the Bobby Kennedy Law. Then there's former Indonesian President Suharto. He used his influence to benefit his children. Their businesses profited from Indonesia's industries. It got so bad that Indonesians adopted a new resistance slogan: corruption, collusion, nepotism. And then there were the Rajapaksas of Sri Lanka. At one point, the family was controlling all the important portfolios in Colombo, some 11 ministries in all. In the Arab world, leaders rise because of their bloodline. Many of these countries are still kingdoms or dictatorships where rulers consolidate power by keeping it within the family. And that is not to say that nepotism does not thrive in democracies. Look at India, where democracy came with dynasty politics. The Gandhi-Nehru family is the prime example. They have a monopoly over one of India's main political parties, the Congress Party. And they're not the only ones to practice this. India has more than 34 prominent political dynasties across party and religious lines, across states. In fact, let me give you a figure. In 20 Indian states, there are families with at least 3 members who are active politicians, 3 members of one family. So you get the gist. Nepotism is rampant from courtrooms to boardrooms and the hallowed halls of legislature and judiciary. It is so common that it's hard to measure and quantify. There is no nepotism index. But there is some data that gives you an idea, like in the United States. By age 30, about 22% of American sons will be working for the same employer as their fathers, and they will be doing this at the same time as their fathers. Nepo babies enjoy not just a link, but the support of a whole ecosystem that comes with it. And Gen Z may be calling it out, but data shows that they are the biggest beneficiaries of nepotism. A survey polled 2,000 workers. It's a small sample, but look at the results. More than 60% said that they used nepotism to land a job offer. 42% said they got the job because of connections. They may think it's unfair, but they're still using it. And not surprisingly, nepotism also has a gender imbalance. Men tend to benefit more from it. So while it's easy to point fingers at star kids and Bollywood makes a convenient soft target, just look around. 30% of the people you know are likely to have benefited from nepotism, meaning they got there using their family connections. Which brings us to the question, is nepotism all bad? I can imagine the first response to this, the same old rant from Ananya Pandey to Hailey Bieber, the same grievance that they got the opportunities they got because they were born famous. And you'd be right, it is unfair. Nepotism is called the enemy of talent. But what if talented children want to follow in the footsteps of their parents? Would you still villainize them? I ask because you don't hear complaints about George Clooney or Drew Barrymore or Farhan Akhtar. They too are Nepo babies, but they're not targeted because they're good at what they do. So I guess it's also about what you make of it. Some people have an unfair advantage, a head start. But in the long run, it's their merit or the lack of it that makes all the difference. And no, this is not a justification or defense of nepotism. It's an acknowledgement that this is a fact of life. In public offices, it is a crime. In private ventures, it is almost a given. If you have money or influence, you will use it to help your kin. At the end of the day, connections do trump qualifications in the world that we live in. It is not ideal, but life's not ideal. And in the real world, even those with an ideal head start fail. And those with no connections triumph. So here's our 2 bits. Harping about nepotism won't take us anywhere. For those who have the advantage, try not to squander it, because you get only so many chances in life. And for those who don't have the advantage, accept that you'll have to work harder instead of complaining and giving up. There are enough and more examples of people who rose through the ranks without family support. So we say, go for it.